Community Beacon, Fridays at 6:30 EST, with your hosts Michael Seville and Joel Simmons. A channel whose focus is liberty. A place where the lessons discussed and taught will create openings to a more open and freer mindset. A mindset where you may reach the height of your potential and excel. Here are your hosts, Mike and Joel.
What is going on? What is going on, brother?
Hey,
In
man.
the place to be.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We got the
Shout out
brilliant.
everybody in social media land, in the digital world, in the real world. We appreciate you all. Welcome to Community Beacon. It's Friday. It's probably 6:30. I almost think that maybe because we only do this in one take. So it's like just go live. that way,
Mm.
that way it's up there. Anything that we meant to say, honestly, we don't go back and edit it. So I'm really trying to figure out why we just record and not go. I know sometimes we do have technical difficulties, so we'll pause. We might pause or something, but more for the most part, and sometimes we have technical difficulties and we just keep going. So when you really,
Yes.
so when you really think about it, because we always got something to say. There's always something to be said. There's always a place to be held for people. Yeah, I
I
think
think it's the timing. Timing to
I
keep
don't
it at
care.
the same time.
Yeah, but it can replay on 5. All right, that's a whole different
That's
subject,
a good
guys.
idea.
wh-
We should go
What
live and then replay it at 6:30.
and
Then they
replay it
get
as
two. That's not a
hey,
bad idea.
yeah, why
I like
not?
that.
Yeah,
We're
why not?
working it out right now on the screen. Y'all are seeing this.
And we appreciate you all for allowing us to do it, holding a space for us. That's what the word is, holding a space. Two new words: holding a space and internet cap. Those are gonna be my new
Mm.
words moving forward. Internet cap. Guys, this community beacon is around 6:30 probably because we didn't record this live, but it was the day of, so these are our fresh thoughts. Um, you see my brother from another mother on the other side of the screen. I don't understand why it doesn't have our names on the bottom. We got to figure that out. That's Joel Simmons of the Tenacity Foundation, the incomparable Joel Simmons of the Tenacity Foundation. And I'm over here on this side, your humble real estate guy here in Palm Beach County.
The real estate king,
Oh man,
business model, Michael Seville,
yeah,
the best of
yeah.
the best.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the kind words, and I'll accept them. Uh, and we're back again. You all see the title up there, man. It works when you work it. The brother came up with the title, so I'm excited to hear what he has to say about it, and we can jump into the conversation.
Yeah, that's interesting because I actually want to ask you some questions about your business and and life and different things like that. But
Oh, okay.
to kind of like introduce it, it's like this. So it works when you work it. So just for the audience and everyone else, it's like, have you ever been in a situation where you were attempting to accomplish something and you just simply felt like you were unable to do it? When you thought about it, you started to reason within yourself, why am I unable to do whatever it is? Whatever the it is, why am I unable to do it? And that's where this all stems from, this thought process that really came to me just randomly um, as I'm walking through my house preparing for this occasion. It's like it works when you work it. And the thought process behind the words work is like activity activates, right? So it works when you work it. And so now you have that thought on your mind. Why doesn't X happen when I do whatever or when I don't do whatever? And so I definitely have some thoughts about that, but I wanted to open this thing up and check in with Mike because Mike has gone through a series of changes to ensure that he gets now, and this is outside looking in to get the results that he desired. This is me looking at him. This is not him telling me the reason why he's doing whatever he's doing. This is me looking from the outside in. Over the course of the last decade plus, I've noticed that he has put in activity to gain whatever it is that he's looking for. And I think that he's the perfect one to kind of open this up. So, Mike, right now, you've been in real estate for how many years?
Um, I've held a license since 2017. I've
Okay.
I've been in property management since around 2000, maybe 11, 2010, 2011. I mean, I bought my first property at 20 or 21, and I didn't buy the property initially. I got into that property, which happened to be my prime residence, as a lease to own, and I ended up
Mm,
actually getting a mortgage on that property. I think it was maybe 2 years later. So this was back in 2003, maybe 2002, 2003. So yeah, I was maybe
mm.
20, 19, 20.
Okay. Okay. So he's got a bunch of years and he's got like
And,
he's
and you know what? If I went back even
mhm,
further, my parents um had real estate, so it was just something that was instilled. So my parents had, when we came to Florida, they had three properties. Um, my father bought his first property at a pretty young. My father bought his father's house, and where his father moved into, and then my father and my mother, they bought a house, and it was a multi-family in Jersey. So you had people who lived in the basement or the bottom floor. The basement is what I would call it, and then you had people who lived in the top floor. There's a multi-family, and then you lived in, and it's very prevalent up north. And then you
mhm,
live in the middle apartment. So I wouldn't say real estate is in my blood at this point.
mhm. Yeah. And that's those are row housing.
What
Is
do you
that
mean
row
row?
housing
No, no, no. It's just
in New Jersey?
yeah, just multi-family housing.
Okay. I just imagine, row housing where they're all connected
Yeah, yeah. That's like
in a
Philly.
row.
A lot of Phillies. I remember I've seen those in Philly and Baltimore. You'll see those what they call row houses where they're connected. Interesting place, especially us being here in Florida. I know a lot of people can't really conceive it unless they saw it on TV.
Mm. Yeah. My mother grew up in that type of housing.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so, but nonetheless, Mike's been in real estate for quite some time. He's got this history, long history of real estate being in his eyesight, in his face. And so it's like, okay, so there was a transition going from where you were to what you're doing and your satisfaction level and where you are now. So what was it exactly? What was it exactly that helped you to move out of the city and into real estate, full full-time real estate?
So, I mean, it actually started while I was with the city. That's the property management part officially. Actually going out and making money from somebody else. So hired. Shout out to Mike Mandelli, who was my first mentor. He was an investment guy. Um, I don't even know how to explain it. So just decided but just made a decision. At one point in time, I said, you know what, I can. It'll probably be me and having more trust in myself. It probably be better for me to just go full time real estate than to be at the city. It was a big mindset paradigm shift that happened at the time.
Hmm. All right. I take a lot out of that. And I hope people are out there. You guys stay in tune with this because Mike is like a living success story. And it depends on what your definition of success. We're not trying to sell success pie in the sky type of thing here. You know, that's not what we're trying to do. This is not about sales right here. This is just about reality. This
It
is
could be.
no TikTok oh, I just made $1 million. All you need to do is follow these 4 steps. This is not what we're doing here. We're just, like I gave you guys the reason behind it. Activity activates. So this is what I just heard from you, Mike. You're like, number one, decision. Number two, trust in self, which I interpreted as confidence, self-confidence, self-belief, self-faith. That's the way that I took that in. That's what I absorbed. That's what I wrote down. And so now remember, I'm thinking activity activates. It works when you work it. So you came to this point where you're kind of sort of dabbling. You've got this long history, mother and father. You've seen real estate, you've seen the sale of, or the purchase of, or the renting of, or you've seen some level of real estate before you understood what moving real estate was, to the point where you understood it, to the point where now you're kind of like dabbling in it, but you're not going full force. You're not making that the only way that you pay your light bill or your water bill or your mortgage or whatever. And then all of a sudden you get this mindset where I need to make a decision for whatever cause, whatever reason. And you decide, and part of that decision was, I need to trust in myself. Take me from that point to the next thing that happened.
So just to clarify, it's not really about a trust in myself when I think about it. It's just a trust. I think we limit ourselves when we start talking about this self-confidence, self-belief. Confidence is made up of a bunch of different things, but when we start just to rely on self, you're going to be in trouble. And that's so you got to be careful. I think a person should be careful of just saying I rely. I think just trust overall. Trusting in what? Trusting that these things can happen. These things are possible. It's possible because, unfortunately, at this point in time, I'm just relying on sight. I'm seeing it happen. And so what really was with Mike Mondelli, I remember Mike Mondelli once, he called me, and I'm working at the city, and he called and he said, what did he say? He said, "Oh, Mike, I have this property," and it was close to Tamron. For those of you who don't know Tamron, that's in West Palm. And he says, you know anyone who wants to get it for $90,000? I shuddered and wonder how much it costs now. And I'm like, I'll think about it. Really, I wasn't thinking about it. I was just like, whatever. This is this guy talking. And then he calls me back at 6 o'clock. He's like, "Mike, never mind. I sold it for 120. Just pushing paper." So so when he said that, this is just one of those moments. It really dawned on me, saying that it's not about how much it is that you do necessarily, because it's more so about your thought process surrounding it. And a lot of people don't get a chance to see that or hear that or know that. So when he said that, I'm like, well, here I am working at the city where I'm exchanging time for money. I'm exchanging activity for money. And Mike is over here exchanging thought processes for money. So then I really had to take stock, and you take around, and this is the awareness part. You look around and see everything around you and your experiences, and you start this, and you hear about certain things, and you take around and you look around and you say, well, everyone's here, because I don't think the world lacks hard workers. I don't think the world lacks people who aren't willing to go out and do it. We see it every day. I see people doing some of the hardest jobs every day. I always equivocate, and I say hard, and I define it as people like when people work on the roof in Florida in the summertime. Like I think that's like one of the most physically taxing jobs a person can have, like doing tile, any kind of roof, really, because it's hot. There's a height, so there's a safety thing with the height. And I don't know how they walk up and down those roofs like that, these guys. But long story short, there's not a lack of work. There's not a lack of people who are willing to put in effort and work. There is a lack of people who are willing to put in the thought processes and the ideals and the focusing and the time to understand these different things. So to take you from the city and being aware and making the decision to just, I'm out here now, it really was a thought process, and a huge portion of that is getting rid of the fear or the resistance around it. So if and that the mind or the being is the part that needs, for most of us, needs to be taken a look at. And we can say a lot of things, and we can, this is the internet cap part. This is where I got the internet cap. And when I say internet cap, it means that there's a lot of facade, there's a lot of lies going on. So we can put off this false bravado of, I'm confident, I'm this, and you can act a certain way and be in a way. However, the results or what's going to manifest are going to ultimately show. The one, some people would say, the proof is in the pudding. Well, the proof is in the pudding. You can it's gonna come out. It's going to, you just got to sit there and watch and see. um I don't know, did I answer your question?
Oh man, you answered a whole lot. I definitely appreciate it. I like that you were talking about the thought, not so much about the activity. And you just kind of alluded to how, here you are, trading activities for time, and here he was trading thought, you know, and I thought that was it's really big, and we're talking about mindset at this point in time, and even mindset, how mindset um, precedes, the output or the activity or the work or the doing or whatever it is, but that thought process, it precedes it, and that thought process is so important, you know, and that's what I'm starting to pick up, and I really like that. Um, Mike, when when I got myself together, um, I was in the middle of some difficulty, and for me, which may not be the story for everybody, but for me, it was I decided to get myself together because I felt as if the route that I was traveling, the road that I was traveling down, was going to lead me into a worse scenario than I had been in. And truth be told, like I had traveled down this road for quite some time, and no matter how many highs I had, the lows always seemed to be worse than the highs. Like, whether it was like jail time or somebody trying to take me off of this planet, before what I believe was my time, it's just like not to go there, but just to kind of tap on that doorway. Um, that's what it was. And I recall me calling up my mother because I had a thought. So I had a thought, and my thought was, I need Jesus. That was my thought. It was a very simple thought. The difference with that thought on that day was that I decided to do something with my thought. I decided to carry my thought from my mind. I used to have well, I have an acronym. It's called PAM. PAM management. And it's predict, act, manifest, right? And it's just you take your thoughts and then you just put your thoughts into action. You know, and eventually what you are doing will manifest what you're thinking. And that's what I did. I said, I need Jesus. What do I need to do to get Jesus? I have no clue, but I know somebody who knows. Hey, mom. Yeah, what's going on, baby? Listen, I need Jesus. uh, okay, well, I can take you to this place. Let's go. And that was it. I just needed that. And because of that one thought and that one action, that next action, it led to a change in the dynamics of my life. Like that was a fork in the road for me. That was the never look back point in my life that happened back in, I don't know, 98 or something like that. And that's the reason why the people in the audience see me as this man today, whereas they saw me in that last man, you never would have wanted to see me again because I was that type of person. So that's what you brought to my mind, man. And when you're talking about this thought, that thought is so powerful. It's like, what do you do with these thoughts? Or do you do nothing with these thoughts? Or, I'm just open conversation, no question there at all.
I was gone before I actually did the action. So and
Mm.
it's similar to
Hold on,
what you
hold
had
on,
going
Mike.
on.
Hold on. What you just said, say that again.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we were gone before you had the action. The action is the
What do you
act
mean by
right, yeah,
gone?
I'm gonna explain it. Give me a second, brother.
Oh my
So
goodness.
so
Mm.
it's there's a saying, it's called be, do, have.
Yes.
That's the saying. There's no more, some people add more. Be more, do more, take more out of the equation. But I'm just gonna say be, do, have. Just by the way of your being, you've already started to separate like that. I know the thought, when you visualize the thought and you came up with the I need to call my mother, and let me not speak for you. When I visualized the thought and said, well, it's time for me to leave the city, that had already been transpiring. This thing had already been taking place because my being had changed. The thought allowed me to visualize the possibilities, and then from the possibilities it was just like I am B. We spoke about this last week. Becoming. I am becoming. And then there was a point of time when we just dropped the coming part of it and we were just in the being of it. Once you become in the being of it, you start to attract the same thing and you start to shed things. Uh, if you Also, sometimes we think that it's the opposite. Sometimes we think we need to do more in order to have more, and then we'll be we'll do. So we think that we need to go into action. You don't need to go into action. You need to figure out, you just need to have these thoughts and start to trust in yourself, or just have the trusting going on. I'm more than what this is. I'm more than what I that than what I thought I was. So what is this about? And there's a guy named Sadhu. I think it's Sadhu Guru. He's a big guy. I think he's from India or something. He's out, and he travels all over. Real interesting guy. And I remember he said they were asking him, like, when did he have this enlightenment period? He talks about his past and the things he used to get into, and et cetera, et cetera. And he's like, well, how did you have this? Like, when did this enlightening thing happen to you? And he said, well, I was on my lunch break. I went out into onto a tree, and I sat there and I just experienced it. And that was it. He didn't do anything extra. He just went to the thing for his lunch break and he just sat in his stillness. So and this can happen for most people. I think most people can just, not most people. Some people can, everybody can, that can happen to. However, we tend to fight a lot of these different cultural things that we've been accustomed to and what we grew up in. If you look at Western culture as a model, they will you will be in the in you'll be doing all day. And when I looked at it, I say, well, what's crazy to me is that I've seen people have one job and they were living check to check. Then I see them and they go out and they get another job and they're still living check to check. And then I see them lose one of those jobs and they're still living check to check. So when I take a part and I look at it, I'm just like, it's the same thing because they haven't changed. So you can do as much as you want. And ask me how I know. Because there was a time when I was like, I'm gonna do all of these things. I'm going to do more. I'm just gonna do. I'm gonna be constantly in activity. I'm gonna be constantly working. I'm gonna be constantly, and that's not every 15 minutes. Like there's a way of it. And then after a year, 2, 3 years go by, and you're just like, wait a minute, I'm in the same place. And you look back and you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense because, and I can't just blame it on inflation because inflation wasn't going was only going up at the time was like maybe 3%, and I was making way more than that 3%. So I couldn't even consider inflation. It was the act of me thinking that I could outwork my mindset. A lot of people aren't going to get it. It's going to take a lot of people some time because it took me some time to grasp that. Then all of a sudden I said, okay, I need to if I reduce my efforts, reduce my efforts and improved my mindset or the way that I thought about things, what's going to happen? It was almost like it was a whole different thing, and I was living the life that I wanted to live. Taking a point, I went to visit one of my coaches this week. He ended up coming down for a conference in at the Four Seasons recently. So I had coffee with him one morning. And this guy's very well known within the marketing arena. I mean, he's one of Alex Hormozi's mentors. And he carved out some time and went down and met him for coffee. And he said he created his life. He works Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. That's it. And then he created what time, if I didn't have any of these past things or what people told me how I was supposed to be, what kind of life would I create for myself? And he did. And just being around him and people like him, because my other mentor, Jim, is similar. Once they stopped getting involved and they started saying, okay, well, the possibilities are endless. And really believed that, things started shifting. But as long as they bought into as long as we buy into what's given to us, which happens all the time, even knowingly, like I knowingly went into real estate when I got my license and said, well, this makes sense and this doesn't make sense. But then when your ecology, people, places, and things are so important, especially once you're beginning, that even with all me knowing these things, I still got sucked into the what everybody else has got going on. It's easy for that to happen. That's what Western culture, any culture, does to you. So Western culture is a culture of doing. So you're gonna hear a lot of these. Oh, I gotta grind, get up and grind, move. Don't nothing go like that. Most of these people got around other people, or if you know who are saying these things, and they're getting the information because it's not all about the grind. These people who are doing or having these things that we see aren't doing a lot of the things that they said that they did. So they did get around of people who they started becoming certain things. So it's just mindset and money mindset, understanding of, and money is just one part of it. Understanding of the self. That's why identity is so important. Understanding your identity, integrity, it becomes very important. Your character is important. And you start to get a grasp on all these things, the character, which is just your integrity. When people aren't around, or when they, you're aligned with what it is that you do and what you believe and your being, and you start to see things change, and you get away from the internet cap. Because internet cap has been happening before the internet. people have been claiming and presenting themselves as certain things. This has been going on way before the internet. I'm just calling the internet cap because this is society now. It's so easier. So it's before the internet cap, or excuse me, before the internet. This false way of being has always been presented because a lot of people lack identity, and if they do know identity, maybe they're too. It's a self-worth thing or ashamed, or in order or they don't want to break certain bond or break certain belief patterns because that's huge.
So I love it. You introduced be, do, have, and I'm not sure if that was you agreeing with that thought or not, because I hear what you keep saying about the word, the piece of that, the do piece of that. You're leaning away from that and more into be and have. So just to be and have.
No,
But
do is still. I mean, you're gonna get up, but if you're being the do part, you're not even gonna know that you're doing it. It's it's the point where if you ever went and spoke to some of these guys in the gym that are like certified bodybuilders, you know what I mean? Like you could see and you see the difference in them, and you talk to them about like nutrition, and you mention certain things. It's not even a it's like not even a thing for them to. They're not dealing with a lot of certain things that most people are like everyone else who doesn't have that physique does. It's just a way. Oh, I'm at the gym.
it's a way of life.
Yeah, it's just a way of life. It's like you don't go to you don't do this to them. You're like you do eat that 5 days a week. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't even, and because a lot of them have gotten so, and maybe they started that way, but they've gotten so far into the being of their identity that it sometimes it's hard for them to have compassion. I've done it before, and I apologize to anyone I've done it to before, to where it's like it at some point in time it's like you look at people weird, like you're still doing that. You know what I mean? But maybe they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the understanding, they don't even know where to look. So I think we speak about compassion all the time and empathy. So it's important that when people reach certain stages to have that empathy and compassion. However, not to dim your light because other people aren't doing those things, because everyone has their path and their journey.
I like it. I tend to think about work more as physical or mental activity or a purpose, and I look at it without like a negative connotation or a positive connotation, just neutral.
Absolutely, it is
You know,
neutral.
and so when I think about it in that form, it's neither good nor bad. It's just what is. But nonetheless, I
Yeah,
really
I'm,
like
and
what you.
let me be clear. I'm not saying whether the word work or labor is bad or good. I'm not whatever. However, a person wants to frame it. What I'm simply saying is that if you're being something, it doesn't even that the rest of it doesn't even matter. It's
Yeah,
just okay.
part
It's
of
like
it.
getting up in the morning. Only time you get and walking down the street, you may feel some people may feel a way about
Mm,
walking down the street or getting up and taking a walk or just moving their legs to the that's something that a person will have to take a look at if they find that to be negative. Um,
mm,
you know what I mean? Like and or positive. like,
mm,
I personally would say go ahead and put some positivity on it. It makes your days brighter. You know what I mean? Like, everything
mm,
we do be joyous in it. So if you want to be joyous, like just hey, I'm take a walk down the street. You know how some people here's something with empathy and compassion. There's people out there who to walk around the block, they're thinking in their mind like this is too much. You know what I
mm.
mean? And I'm sure maybe in some of my unhealthier days, that might have been my thought too. Like, I got to get up and walk around the block. Then there's someone who's like, I can't wait to walk around the block today. It's
Mm.
gonna clear my mind. I'm gonna get some fresh air. I'm gonna, you know. And then there's someone who's like, I'm walking around the block, and I'm gonna run into my neighbor, or who knows what the possibilities are if I walk around the block. Hey, maybe I'm just walking around the block. Maybe I'm not. Like it just, I think that's all decided on like where you are at the moment, where a person is at the moment. And once again, to have compassion, because here's something when you said it works when you work it. We don't just show up here. Like things don't just happen. Things aren't just happenstance. This thing has been going on for a long time, and there's a plan, which you don't understand. But these things have been going on for, I think, so how old is the Earth? 16 billion years or 5 billion? Like
Mm.
all these things have just been. These things are happening. You're right. So eh, I don't think of things as just being happenstance. I think there's a plan. So then I think all things work together for the good as well. So it's like all things are working together for the good. Sometimes it's hard to see it in the moment. Like I didn't see why I was working at the city. All I did was provide the intention and the focus at some point in time. There was a time at the city when I said, okay, this
Mm.
mindset, the way that these things are going is not the way that I want them to go, but I'm here. Matter of fact, you had a conversation with me once because it was a time when me and the supervisor was just like not seeing eye to eye. And you read a quote, and at the time I could have choked you from the Bible when you said,
Thank God I didn't get choked, y'all.
right, and and I would have put my hands on the brother. However, I wasn't happy about it. It triggered something in me because it was like I don't even remember the quote that you gave me, brother, from the Bible, verse for verse, but it had something to do with, basically you gotta have reverence for the people above you. It was something to that
Oh.
extent, and at the time, like I'm going through all this, and I go to, but this is why it's good to have good counsel, people. And I go to this brother, and this brother's telling me this. You know what I mean? And I said, okay, maybe at that point in time, now it takes me a little less time to get over things. But at that point in time, it probably was a good 2 to 3 weeks of just human in my mind going back and forth. And then I said, well, I'm here. And the brother gave me the correct information. Since I'm here, because I'm choosing to be here, because the city doesn't make you work. We choose to work where we work. I forget what the
Mm.
term is. This is uh, a choice. But you're choosing to be wherever you are. Make no qualms about it, everyone. We're choosing to be exactly where we are and doing the things that we do. Because of our fear of the consequences if we don't do what we're supposed to be doing. I said, well, why don't I make it intentional? And around that time is probably when I joined Toastmasters, because at
Mm.
that point in time, the city was saying, "Hey, if you're gonna further your way, I think they would pay for it, and they were going to give me the time for it." So I'm like, "Well, why don't I just go here and go do this for an hour every other week for every week?" And then and the city's gonna do it. I started taking every class the city provided. Oh, you got this training, I'm going. You got this training,
Mm.
I'm going. I'm going. So it's like in the stillness of becoming, maybe it just all
Mm.
these opportunities started to open up. And so it's like now when I'm going to Toastmasters, I'm like, okay, well, this is different. This is intentional.
Mm.
I don't want to take, because like, let's not take the doing lightly, brother, because I don't want to make it seem to people like, oh, I just sit in here and I just and I'm just and I can be. And the thing is that, because here's the thing, is that most of us need to see and feel it. There's a whole faith conversation behind that, because faith is not that, right? Faith comes by hearing, right? And hearing by the word of God.
Mhm.
Is that in the book, right? So
Mhm.
this,
Yes.
if we can grasp this part of it, like, because that's why this brother can go sit on a hilltop and gain some type of enlightenment, because he worked something out in his mind. Like, this is not what he did, is not normal for most people. This is why, certain people can do these things. They can have, excuse me, not, and certain people can become these things. Like, how? What? I just saw him yesterday, and today he's, it's a whole different thing. So I'm gonna speak for me. I didn't have that kind of faith. A lot of my faith came from seeing and touching and that kind of thing. Like, it was, even though I was going, I understand the Bible and going, it wasn't, I had to do things, like, and it was like, and sometimes it was just as constant, and it could be seen when I look back on it, it was very inefficiently doing things, a lot of wasting, a lot of because instead of me instead of having the faith, when you start to get into the faithfulness of it, a lot of things start to become a lot easier. This goes back to Myron Golden. We choose to skip over the simple truth and find a complicated lie. It just can't be this easy. It just can't be. But bit by bit, it is. When you hear this guy Alex Hormozy talk about him and his gym thing, and they're saying they're spending $50,000 a month on Facebook ads, you're like, $50,000, or some of them more than that. But you're like, $50,000 a month on Facebook ads. But then the question is when you're looking at ROI, etc. And Gary Vee talks about it as, he said, if he had known better, he would have went all in on Google words at the time, because he says he was getting it for like next to nothing, maybe $3 or $4 a word for Google ads, if you understand the marketing concept. Now it's probably hundreds of dollars he would have to spend. But going back to quickly for the Facebook ads, if you're going to spend, if I told you could spend $50,000 this month and you would profit $100,000, would you do it?
Yes.
Right. So then do it. But most people don't believe or have the faith that this is gonna happen. And then if you could do that, like, how much would you scale at this point? Like most people would almost be unlimited. It would be unlimited. Person would be like, man, if I spend, so you're talking, if I spend, let's do. I'll give you even easier number. Most people won't do it. It's crazy to me. Spend $1,500 a month on Facebook. And if I give you if you spend $1,500 a month, depending on whatever your product is, and it'll give you $10,000, would you do it? We're gonna, yeah. If and people are showing that, because this is what they're telling you, but people won't do it. The house, and I say that I'm gonna make this even simpler. Houses in 2017 to 19, I was screaming from the rooftops. Everybody go on and get you a house. 3%, 4% interest rate. This is free money. You're not getting this at your in any nothing like you to borrow money from. Can't get it. Go buy a house. A person who doesn't understand that, and this comes from a scarcity mindset, is like, nah, I'm just gonna rent forever because rent is cheap. Okay. If you had done these things back in 2017, 18, 19, bought a property, most of you would have doubled your net worth at this point. By doing exactly what you were doing, by nothing extra. You would have done it. But you don't have someone has to see you, and this is where you get caught up in the hoopla of it, is that you got to see people. Most people have to see everybody doing it. That's why people got caught up in the 2005, 6, 7, and 8. They were like, wait a minute, I see everybody doing it, so I'm gonna do it. And then all of a sudden boom, this happens. Because most people have to wait for these things that they have to see to make sure. And ask me how I know. This is not me speaking from lack of experience. This is me seeing it from experience. And I still get this. And and I'm also not talking about just people of that are just, these are some of our smart, these are the smartest and brightest that do it, because most of us don't really have that faith that we proclaim we have. Because if you had the faith, then you would do it. How do you leave your job, man? My mother worked a job, my father worked a job, my grandfather worked a job. Everybody exchanges time for money. They looking at you like you're crazy. Like, what are you talking about leaving your job? Blah, 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 blah. I got faith that this is gonna happen. This is gonna work out for me. Ecology plays a major part, man. Ecology, people, places, and things. We got to pay attention to our surroundings. So it came a point in time of, even if I was going to take less for a little bit, being around certain people was going to allow. I was going to be different. I had to say, listen, I got to get around something else, because I'm a baby at this point in this thing, and I have to start strengthening this faith muscle. Like it's so it's just like by and by, it's like, okay, I'm strengthening. So now a lot of what a lot of people would consider risk is not risk to me, because it's strengthened before. But initially, this is my compassion. Initially, they're like, what are you talking about? Spend $50 on Facebook. I remember I was getting leads on Facebook in 2017, 18 at like $1 or $2 a lead. I mean, I filled up my CRM with leads on Facebook. It was just insane. Matter of fact, I probably can go back and show you the history of it. And just being around ecology, people who didn't believe in Facebook and ads at the time, etc., I pulled back when I probably should have went all in. Right? Because the evidence was there. I was doing, but I wasn't being it, because the moment someone kind of, I've been doing this for 15 years and that's not gonna work, and just continuously listening to it over and over again is like, it plays, we're all human. So if you keep hearing the same thing over and over again, we can easily start to believe these different things.
I love it. I love it. There's so much everything so good, and I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. Just in the whole thought, in the whole span of these different things, I hear you talking about doing and versus being, and this is something that while you were speaking that touched me. And my thought on that was, sometimes what will end up happening is people will see somebody doing something
Yeah.
and recognize that they have something, and they will believe that because they did something, they have something. So they will start to do what they are doing to have what they have, but they never took the time to be the person who does the thing, who receives what they want to have. And I think it's just so important that you have to become what the individual who can do the thing that renders the results. And once you become that individual, then the doing doesn't feel like strenuous work. It feels like joyous work. And so that's when you end up walking into the gym and you see the guy who's ripped, and you're like, yo, how did you do that? He's like, oh man, I just, I did this on that, did this on that. You're like, oh, you had to do all that? Like, dude, I mean, this is just what I do. It's like, and that's when it's like water rolling off of a duck's back. I've been in this environment for so long that I no longer fly out of the water simply because it's raining.
That's a big
The
one.
water just rolls off my back. You don't see me pedaling underneath. And I, for one, don't even care that I'm pedaling because that's what I do. It's just a part of who I am. I have become the individual who does what I do, and it is no longer strenuous work for me to do it. But the catch in this thing is that you don't just run out there and just do without gaining like all these things. Like I'm listening to you, Mike. You're like, well, my parents did. And I watched, I observed, and then I started to research. I started to gain knowledge. Then I changed, I changed my environment and I got around people that helped to inspire or that were inspired, and I recognized the inspiration in them. I changed the environment that I was in, a growing environment, and then I began to change inside myself. But all of it started off with just like seeing stuff, believing stuff, hearing stuff, witnessing stuff, taking stuff in, trying stuff, and all of that stuff. That's why I feel that internet cap, because all of that stuff is like represented in
Hold
somebody's
on.
Instagram that you
we gotta
read
put
in 3
we got to timestamp the brother saying internet cap at 5250. It's gonna get. Oh, that was my whole plan, is to get the brother to say internet cap before the episode was over.
Yes.
Shut it down now. Go ahead, brother. No. Someone said, how do you teach a fish to swim? Right? Like how do you teach a fish to swim? Same thing with the ducks. It just is. How do you teach a baby, like make a baby walk? Like, does a baby walk in like, you know what I mean? Like it's just these. I seen a brother do. The guy's name is Peter Crone. He did this awesome transformation with this lady, and oftentimes we feel, and I've done this before, where I just want a person to just change, because when you put the facts up to somebody, when you give them all the information, like let's take nutrition for a moment, you can overwhelm somebody who's never understood nutrition, doesn't have a grasp of nutrition. You can just overwhelm. I didn't really understand nutrition until I was like 25, 26. Shouts out to Officer Thurlow. I just thought that if I went and I worked out, I could just lose weight. Like I can eat whatever I want, So I'd end up having Dunkin' Donuts and donuts in the morning. I would have, my dog is going crazy. Forgive us, guys. I would have donuts in the morning. I could have only one slice or 2 slices of pizza for lunch, and then have Burger King for dinner. But if I go to the gym in the morning and do a cardio, and if I go to the gym in the evening and do some lifting, I'd be okay. And that scale just kept on going in the opposite direction. So if you came to a Michael at that point in time, thank God for Thurlow, and gave it was initially overwhelming. So here, just being the kind of person I was, I got into a rigidity and discipline in order to get over that hump. So let's, nothing is right or wrong. We do have these resources and these tools. They're just not sustainable. So that's why I emphasize on the being and so much, because the doing is not sustainable. The internet cap having is not sustainable. This is where you get those stories. The Hammer stories, Hammer giving out all that money because he didn't understand how to be where he was at the time. So it all comes back down, because I don't care if you have you can have $100 million. If you don't understand what to do or how to get to that $100 million, if I just gave it to you, you're going to end up with nothing, and probably worse off than when you came in. Because most people don't understand that's where you get all the lotto stories, the NBA stories. I mean, we're giving these NBA and NFL players all this money, and their brain isn't even fully developed yet. by 25, 26, and then we get them around all these other things, and then we look around like, how did you lose all that money? I heard someone say, a financial advisor tell one, everybody believes at the time, anyways. Now it's probably more like 20 or 30,000, but at the time they said $10,000 can solve anything. That's what that was the saying. That's what that's a belief in a lot of people's mind who don't really understand or have financial literacy. They think $10,000 will save will solve any problem. But in the becoming, in the being of this thing is what's going to be sustainable. I want to leave people with this, especially working on self-concept, because a lot of this is self-concept and identity, and there's a lack of identity. When you see a lot of scarcity and not understanding, there's going to be a huge lack of identity. Whenever you hear someone talk about lack of confidence, whenever you hear someone talk about lack of worth, having no worth, when you hear people talk about fear, there's a lack of self-confidence because we don't understand who or whose we are. Because when you go back to that, you just know that all things are possible, right? But if you don't have those, if you don't have that understanding of identity, then everything becomes more like it's impossible. You don't see the possibility in things. So when we talk about the being, and these are some awesome tools. If we could just, if these things should be taught in school, but there's a reason why there's not taught in school, of how we think and how we understand and how we know these things. And these things are in the Bible, but a lot of people don't have the understanding. You got to get around a brother who can actually break these things down for you. This is the importance of getting around people, because the universal truth is there. It's universal. You can't go above it. It is what it is. It's like gravity. You know what I mean? Keep fighting it. You only can stay in the air for so long. We've created all these things, but that airplane can only stay in the air for so long because you're fighting against the law. The being is the quality, right? So, and this will get you past the discipline of it. You need to know that you are and have always been whatever quality it is. So trusting or peaceful, you need to know that you are peaceful. And there's going to be times that peace is not there. And then but if you know that in your inner being that you're peaceful, you can always go find peace, even though peace, my mother used to say, you're disturbing my peace. Even though there's stimuli out here that's attempting to, and it's not really attempting to, but it triggers something in you. So when you're not peaceful, you can go within and say, well, what makes this negative, or what makes this positive? Like, what makes this negative? So if it's disturbing your peace, it's probably negative. What makes this negative? But if you understand from the core that peace is there, then you can start to dissect that. And then you can start in the process of, okay, well, maybe I need more rest. There was last week I had a time when, man, I wasn't getting much sleep. You know what I mean? Like, whatever reason, caffeine, I'm waking up. I'm not sleeping. I can't even take a nap. Like, my little 20 or 30 minute nap that I need to function past a certain time. But what is it? Oh man, maybe it's but I know I'm a peaceful person. I know I'm a restful. I can get rest. So what is it? So now I can start to identify these things. Okay, maybe it's caffeine. To me, okay, I need to cut down the caffeine. Or maybe it's my diet. What have I been eating? Maybe this thing is not agreeing with my stomach. Like, did I add anything? Did I do anything? But we can start to figure out these little things. So we're getting to know ourselves, because everything is just not a huge template. We're following what worked for other people, most of these different things. But some of these things don't work for us because maybe we're not getting enough fresh air. Maybe we're not getting the word. Maybe we're not trusting in God. What is it that we're doing? But we could start to pinpoint, oh man, for here is something. And you could pinpoint, like, man, I ain't read the Bible in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like maybe I'm not getting this. So, but now I can go back and start to look at where am I messing up on? So there's the peacefulness. So we can start to do, things that, require us, or what we see as a criteria for these different things. And then then it's simple of just having this peace. So now I can go to Joel, and this is how we get mixed up with the internet cap, is that I'm like, man, Joel is peaceful. Well, what is Joel doing? And so Joel will say, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But that's great for Joel, but this is also a template that I can use. Well, maybe he didn't mention this. Maybe I'm gonna add this. Maybe I'm gonna add this and this, that, and the third. And I do it all the time with the brother, because I go to the brother and the brother say, well, brother, one time he said, man, read the Bible until it starts to fall apart or something. You know what I mean? And then not so that things change, but so that you come out better, right? So it's like, okay, maybe I can add this. What does it do for me? Go over these little trial periods. Because all these things we can figure it out. But what we often do is we avoid it. And not be intentional about it. Oh, it'll get better just by the sake of it getting better. Do you believe that? You can't,
Yes, sir. Y'all, we love you.
Yeah,
I
we
hope
do.
you've enjoyed this conversation as much as we have, you know. And this was the entire intention of this conversation, was to get a little bit closer to where we need to be at. This was a wonderful conversation. Mike has laid out a lot of good work, and I encourage you all to rewind this, to listen back to it again, and hinge it on this thought, the same thought that he just left at the very end, which was, it may be a template, or it may be simply a piece of a template for you, a fraction, because there's just much more to him as there's much more to me
Yeah.
that has gotten us to where we are today. You know, and as I was speaking to a friend of mine, my pastor, and I was telling him about some of the reason of how I got to be who I am today. And part of that I was telling him was that I have been around so many people that I look to as mentors. I've been around them so much that I got a chance to hear more of their story to understand how they became who they are.
Yeah.
A lot of times we meet people and we hear one word from them and we believe that that one word that they have shared is the reason that they have what they have, and we're looking at the wrong things.
Yeah.
It is a lifetime that they have gone through that has made them become whom they are. And you have to absorb that, get
Yeah.
into the mindset of, I love the way Mike talks. I'm gonna befriend him, and I'm gonna understand why he says what he says, where he's coming from. And you're gonna learn so much more in that relationship than you will in just going out and seeing him talk or hearing him speak for one occasion. Not that you can't get a whole lot out of this 1 hour, because there was a lot that was given. But you got to go back and you got to say, well, he said this, and then go back and watch another video, because in the other video, he may have actually told you the reason why he said what he said on this occasion, or he may tell you the relationship he had with his mom, he had with his dad, he had with this person or that person, on a relationship with me. And then you'll be able to start to piece together the reasons why he's saying what he's saying. And that's the same way with me. And it's the same way with so many others. So don't take the internet cap. Do your research. Go do your research. Because if you are going to become the one who receives what they receive because of who they are, then you need to start working on the being that you are today.
Amen. Amen. All right, guys. We appreciate you. And we will see you next week.
Peace.